Hi, how you doing? My name's John Brown, and I'm here to do an introduction to the board gaming hobby. Now, you might say, hobby? Well, I've played Risk or Monopoly or Trivial Pursuit or one of the about 5 games that you can actually find in the store. Well, interestingly enough, if you go to BoardGameGeek.com, the really #1 site to get information about board games, you'll find tens of thousands of board games there, and if you scroll down to top 100 games, odds are, even top 2 or 300 games, odds are you probably haven't heard of hardly any of them. Now, in order to understand board games, a lot of people break board games down into a couple major categories. Euro games, basically, sometimes they're called German games. In Germany, they were told after World War II, we don't want you making war games. So they made these games that are all about the most efficient move and things like that. And they can have wonderful themes like farming and building power stations. Actually, they're very popular games, but some people complain that they don't have a lot of theme. There's Ameritrash games that the basis is theme. There's plastic miniatures and rolling dice, and it's all about telling a story, but you can come up with this plan, and it's wonderful, and roll the dice, and it fails. So there's more randomization, but both games have their advantages and disadvantages. There's hybrid games that try to mix the two. There are also games called gateway games, and yes, they are a bit like gateway drugs, and the idea is to get you into harder stuff, but in this case, more board games are a good thing. In each of these major genres of games, there are a lot of subgenres, and what we're going to do here now is introduce you to just a few of those popular subgenres, and there's a lot more that I'm not going to talk about. This is just a really, really quick, brief overview to give you an idea of some of the things that are out there. And there's a lot more that I would like to talk about, but can't only keep you here so long. But if you want to come over and have some time and play, that'd be cool. But first, we've got to decide what we want to play. First, we're going to talk about worker placement. And worker placement is kind of like it sounds. You take one of your workers, or in this case an agent, and place them on the board, and they get you a resource. In this game, the cubes actually represent either mages or fighters or clerics that help you complete these quests. And this, of course, is Lords of Waterdeep, set in a Dungeons & Dragons theme, if that's something that interests you. But if this doesn't interest you, trust me, there's lots of other themes out there with worker placement, and you were trying to most efficiently do this quest. But you've got to guess where the other players are going to go. And you've got to figure out, what's my priority, what are they trying to do, and that's part of the game, because you get bonuses for completing certain types of quests. You can even build buildings that if you go there, they give you maybe something better than what's on the board, but they give the owner of the building something. So maybe you want a building that you want to use, maybe you want one that, other people use, so you can get a free bonus. And then you can also go to Waterdeep Harbor, where, some nasty things happen, and you can potentially play these intrigue cards. And this is where some of the player interaction, or, fighting, if you will, almost comes in. You can give people these terrible mandatory quests where they have to complete them before they can do anything else, and it makes them use resources for very small rewards. It's a pretty nasty thing. There's all kinds of worker placement. This one's a really pretty run-of-the-mill one, but people love it so much because it's so simple and it's streamlined, and it makes sense, and it's a good introductory one, especially if you kind of like the Dungeons & Dragons theme. There's all kinds of games out there. One of my favorites is Manhattan Project, where you place workers onto the board, and then you have to take them off. You have to do one of those actions, so how long do you leave them out? Do you block up spaces? And the goal of the game is to build atomic bombs, but you don't actually set them off. So it's not really about player combat, but there's lots of choices in this genre. There are cooperative games where you're going to be working together to beat a challenge in front of you. There's a very popular Pandemic that is currently available and is a popular app on the iPad right now. Here is Pandemic basically in a fantasy setting called Defenders of the Realms, where you have your hero and you go around and all these bad guys are going to be spreading around the board, and the blue guys are hard to beat. Maybe you beat them, but then maybe you ignore the green guys because they're easy and you can crush them. But then they spread out across the board because you're not worried about them, and you lose. Basically, cooperative games have a lot of ways to lose and one way to win, and that may sound kind of annoying, but actually, they're really fun because you get to work together, and when you do beat them, you get a real sense of accomplishment, and everybody's on the same team. The only problem is you can have somebody who's kind of a jerk and tries to tell everybody what to do. In general, I haven't had a huge problem with that. I really love cooperative games, but that is one people's complaint about some of them. What about more family-friendly cooperative games? Here we have Forbidden Island, where we have an island, and it's a lot bigger than this, but I just laid a few tiles out, and we're going around and we're collecting cards so that we can collect these wonderful treasures and get off the island. Except the island's not happy that we're there, and the island starts getting a little bit underwater, and then the island starts going away, and you see, the place where we came to the island is Fool's Landing. You think we would have realized maybe this wasn't a good idea, because, well, if Fool's Landing goes away, we can't leave, and we lose. And again, there's lots of ways to lose, but if we get off the island with all 4 relics, we win. And not only are the relics really pretty, but it's a really fun introductory level cooperative game. What about card games? Well, there's lots of card games I like. One that I don't have laid out here is Guildhall. It's basically a set collection game, but your sets of cards have powers, and they can do things. They help you get more sets or even hurt each other. Here's a really fun, just like game called Smash Up, where you have all kinds of things like aliens and ninjas and zombies and all different kinds of things, and you mix 2 decks together and you go at it and you try to score these bases against each other. And well, it's just really fun and silly. You can have alien dinosaurs or ninja robots or whatever you want, and it's really fun, and yeah, you're attacking each other, kind of, but it's real lighthearted. Or, warning, do not play this game if you play with angry people. We have Cutthroat Caverns, where we're kind of working together. Sorry about that flare there. Maybe we want to defeat this creature named Fear, and we're all in a dungeon fighting it. Except whoever actually kills it gets points. So maybe you do an attack that would kill it, but then somebody makes you miss and do damage to yourself. So then you block that person from attacking. And then the last person to attack makes the creature attack you at the end of the round, so you hardly did any damage to it at all and basically got hurt. Well, that tends to happen in games like this, and if you enjoy that type of game, though, it's actually really fun. Well, so for some reason, ruling over the Roman Empire has something to do with playing Mancala. Like I said, the theme doesn't always make sense, but how I choose my selections is I pick a bowl, basically, and I move as many pieces as I have. So maybe I would move 1 there, or 2 if I place like this. Or maybe I could take a really big turn and take all these and then spread them out 1 at a time all throughout the board. And then wherever I end up is the turn I take. And if whatever action I'm on. But the complicated thing about it, not only do I have to plan out so that I can get to the actions that I want to take on the turns I want, but I can get bonuses. If I take an action and end up with a blue and a pink, and here I get a bonus action, and then I can go out to the board and I can build things, and I can fight wars, and I can ship things, and I can do whatever that does, and this, and that, and there's, and this, and Senate, and things, and forms, and okay, it's a little bit daunting, but it's really, really fun as you crunch your brain trying to figure out what's the best way to do moves in order to, score these points, and victory points are also something we see in Euro games, and even though I might make it sound like I don't really enjoy this game, it's actually one of my favorites. And one last game type I'm going to mention is horror games. No, that's Bellerste's not a horror game. This is a horror game, Betrayal at House on the Hill. This is probably the simplest horror game, and it's hardly a horror game at all. There's really complicated horror games out there, like Arkham Horror, and like Mansions of Madness that have lots of setup and crazy things you do, and you can just fall in a portal into wherever and not do anything all game. But anyways, I do like those games too, and this game's hardly even a game. You have like a gypsy and a jock and a kid and a scientist and a priest, and they go into a mansion and start exploring, and you flip over these rooms and you see what happens, and it all seems kind of silly and pointless, and you get items and strange things happen that doesn't make any sense. And then you get to the haunt, where you go to these books and you see the one side of players are the survivors, and they're just trying to survive the mission, and then the traitor reads their part of the mission. And here's the thing, it's brilliant. There's like 50 different, actually not like, there are 50 different stories that can happen. If you enjoy B horror movies and just silliness, you don't care about who wins or loses, this game is fantastic fun in my opinion. There really isn't much of a game to it. You're just kind of going into a room and seeing what happens, but it's the story of it. If you don't care about who wins or loses, and you're just there for this sheer enjoyment, some of the stories aren't that great. Some of them are unbalanced towards one side or another, but I always find the game hilarious. Now here's the thing, I haven't even scratched the surface on what you can do in gaming. There's lots of genres I didn't even touch on, and the idea is if there's something you like in a game that you've played, there's probably a game that does it better. There's something you like in life, there's probably a game that has to do with it. There are thousands of games out there, and there are games that some people really enjoy, that are really popular, that I don't really enjoy, and vice versa. A lot of people think Lords of Waterdeep is kind of an average game. I think the guys over at Shut Up and Sit Down, what did they call it? Exceptionally average? And I get it. I get that compared to other worker placement games, it's not that complicated and not necessarily that engaging, but it's so smooth and simple, and I enjoy it when I play it, and it's all about having fun. And well, there's expansions to it to make it more interesting. You can go to these special spaces that give you more things, but then you get corruption, and corruption's bad, but you can get rid of corruption kind of by repenting. And yeah, like I said, the theme in that game, these cubes represent people. Maybe it's not huge connection there, but I enjoy the game a lot. And that's the thing, there are probably games out there that you'll enjoy, and you'll enjoy with your kids. And the thing is, most kids' games on the market are boring and terrible. Not all of them, but you know what? Sorry, you're trouble. You get Chutes and Ladders. I mean, there isn't even a game there, and you'll be surprised what your kids can do if you start challenging them and slowly stepping up. I didn't even mention Ticket to Ride, one of the most popular gateway games out there, and the game you can play with your kids. Settlers of Catan, a game I played years before I got into gaming, that usually devolves into jokes about wood and sheep and look up the Big Bang Theory and Catan for a video if you don't. Really what my goal is going to be is to show you some different games you might be interested in, to spread the word about the hobby. And if you have any suggestions of things you'd like to see, any ideas, let me know. Be sure to subscribe, to do all those wonderful things, and I'll hopefully see you back soon with some more in-depth look at individual games or at an individual genre. Alright, thanks, and we'll see you later. Bye.